Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, and welcome to episode 523 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we will talk a little bit about the Joker 2, Folie à Deux, or however the heck it is pronounced, and honestly, most people do not care because no one is going to see this movie. It is a verifiable box office flop, and when you start to dive into the numbers, especially when you start to compare it to the original 2019 Joker film and look at those ticket sales, it gets even worse. So we'll talk about what those numbers look like, especially those comparisons. Also, got some movies to review, as well as our typical general box office discussion, so it should be a good time with lots of things to discuss. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, allow that fire button, also smash the rumble button as well, and also make sure, of course, you share this stream out with everyone that you think might have a good time. All of this, all the while, I'm trying to get the chat bots loading, but for some reason, it is not working. No idea why that is the case. Heimdall is broken, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if I can try something. I hope it doesn't break the stream. Let us see. So I just did a Control-Alt-Delete thing, which is why I was like, I hope it doesn't break the stream. All right, let us see. Where is the chatbot? Potentially there. Heimdall. Yoo-hoo. Hello. Hello, Heimdall. Where are you, Heimdall? Why aren't you working? All right. End task. End task. We're doing it live, people. We love to do it live. The VPN is off. I thought everything else was going to be perfect tonight. I was testing out some things in the beginning, so King and Rumsky, thanks you for putting up with the tasting comments from before. Let's see if ending that task is going to get this bad boy loading up. Oh, maybe some life. Maybe not. Apologies, everybody. Heimdall is still dead. Heimdall is still dead. I wish that I could do something about it, but unfortunately, that is just not the case. And also, I thought I had this thing fixed to be able to hold more than... Oh, my goodness gracious. I thought I had this thing set to be able to hold more than 500 messages. There's no way there's more than 500 messages here. Oh, my goodness. Why? Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me? You're driving me crazy. You're driving me absolutely crazy. Oh, I have to actually switch. That explains it. That explains it. Let me see if I can reload that window. Okay, there we go. The window is reloaded. Yeah, unfortunately, Heimdall is broken, everybody. So no Heimdall tonight. I've spent already too much time on it already. So let's just go ahead and dive into y'all's comments. Oh, man, it's going to be a fun time. And I was actually going to say we could dive into your comments, but unfortunately those comments are disappearing on me, and so I don't know even what to do anymore. Let's just jump into it. So Print Screen, hail to you, Print Screen. Thank you very much for being here today. We got the man with the orange hat hanging out, lurking. Family comes first, man. I totally understand. Thanatos Felicitas is in the chat as well. We got Thanatos saying hello from somewhere. Hello from somewhen, actually. Sorry. 7:48 p.m. Jeremy Zakowski tagging what's going on. Jeremy Zakowski. JS Pena hanging out as well. J Roar 123. What is going on? Jesse Bailey hanging out. Print Screen. I normally don't leave messages this early, but wanted to let everyone know on next week's show I'll come on here under the name Jimmy A. Just a new account for me. Sounds good. Southeastern Kaiju. What is going on? Ambrose Chamberpot. Hail to you. Forever Sci-Fi hanging out in the chat as well. J Roar. Isn't that what the Joker does? He throws bombs? I see what you did there. Wendy, what's going on, Wendy? We got Laura, what's going on? Says, I almost timed out Print Screen by accident. Oh, no. Glad that you did not do that. Wendy Hunter, who is a member, saying, I was shocked when I watched 3 Weekend Down break and heard how bad Joker did and what the movie actually is. Oh, yeah. It's a hot mess. And this is coming from someone who's probably going to be the most gracious towards the movie. The most forgiving of the film, because there are lots of parts of the film that I actually do enjoy. It's the last third that is just complete and utter trash. It just, honestly, it's amazing just how poorly written and how poorly delivered that final act actually is. We got Mr. Roy hanging out. What's going on, Mr. Roy? Caveat Ties hanging out. What's going on? For Sci-Fi being a member saying, it seems like they have some movies and TV shows now just to hate on people. That seems like an expensive way to tell someone you don't like them. Yeah, I don't understand why you spend $200 million on a film like Joker, a film where the first movie in your now franchise, I guess you could say, made $1 billion, adjusted for inflation, over $1.2 billion in fact, and then you're just going to go ahead and put a film out there that is telling people essentially to screw off. Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense to me. Now, again, I think I can try to make it work mentally to say, okay, maybe here is the mindset that Todd Phillips had when making the movie. But even then, it's like, was it really worth it? You have to be a bit of a nihilist, which maybe that's exactly what Todd Phillips is. But you have to be a bit of a nihilist to actually find the reasoning that I think I have for why he decided to do the things that he did and why he wouldn't care about whether people would like it or not. Yeah, let's just say not a good way to approach a movie. Nihilism is just not a good way to approach anything in life. Keely Chow, what's going on? Everyone is doing well. Thank you also, everyone, for the thoughts of prayers towards baby Sif. She had tubes put in her ears this past Friday, and she's doing great. Luckily, it's a very quick recovery, but obviously, whenever your baby is getting put under for any amount of time, any type of surgery, even one as routine as that, things can happen. And so, obviously, that's why I was pretty much out of commission on Friday, was back to the Salty Saturday stream on Saturday when I found out she was healing up well. When I was able to see her in the morning, be like, hey, and she was doing great. Laura Tag say, I've had no time for movies at the theater lately, and that makes me sad, but Penguin continues to entertain. I agree. Oh, man. Just watched the 3rd episode of Penguin today earlier, and yes, absolutely agree. Penguin is phenomenal. Now, obviously, the show is still going on, and so a lot of things could happen between now and then, but it is, I think, something that is worth talking about. It's worth being excited for as well. You know, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how the show goes on and also how it connects to the Batman 2. Because honestly, Batman 1, right, the Matt Reeves Batman movie, I just did not like. I thought that the first third was okay, and then the middle, it kind of got mediocre, and then the end just completely sucked. Especially when you had that reveal of the Riddler. And I was so excited because Paul freaking Dano was in the movie. And you all know, I'm a big fan. If you've watched me for any length of time, you know Paul freaking Dano is the man. All right, big fan of Paul freaking Dano. But unfortunately, he's not the one that they decided to put in. Or rather, unfortunately, Paul freaking Dano was turned into something that is just not Riddler in any way, shape, or form. So, yes, it is quite sad. Quite sad. All right, let me go ahead and copy this link real quick and then put this in before the show gets away from me too much. I gotta get the right chat doc in here. There we go. That is better. So eventually I'll be able to go back to that. Oh man, if you only saw the amount of windows on my screen right now, it's just bad. Anyway. Let's see. Laura, I totally agree, though. Getting back to the Penguin conversation, it is just a very, very solid show. And what I really liked about this past episode was the fact that they went into the background of Victor, right? The background of Vic, who has now become the driver and really go-to person in the life of Penguin, in the life of Oz. And I think that it was really cool to get that bit of a backstory about him, because now we didn't need to spend a lot of time with it. It was only about maybe 10 or minutes or less of that episode, and that itself was able to give us everything we really needed to know a bit more about why he's doing what he's doing, like what led to him making the choices that led to him interacting with Oz's car and getting captured, essentially, right? And also the purpose of him in the show trying to find meaning in life, especially post events of his life, right? Post events of his family. And I thought that was very brilliantly done. Again, there's really great writing going on with Penguin right now, and it's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. Okay, I don't know exactly what is going on because I see the live chat on one side and YouTube me, please calm down. I don't even I haven't even read all your comments. I just see you're posting a lot of things in comparison to everybody else. So please don't spam is more than just playing the same message over and over again. If everyone else is talking at a certain speed, and then you're just like going on and on and on and on, that can be a bit of a problem too. So just chill out, man, okay? And I'll get to those comments at some point and see what started it all. Anyway, Southeastern Kaiju, what is going on? Cthulhu, who's a member, saying, happy Monday, Odin in chat. 523, the best number ever, according to Barry the Homeless Guy on 5th Street. There you go. Thank you very much. At least someone out there is going to say it's the best show out there. Oh, man. And again, apologies to everyone about Heimdall not working. Unfortunately, I guess the Streamlabs bot app just doesn't want to work at all. I don't quite understand it, but I've already spent too much time on it. Let's see. We got Shorty Short saying, hello to Mr. Roy. Hello, hello. Cthulhu, is it okay to laugh at I Am Racist making more money than Megaflopolis? I think it's just a testament to when you make a very good feeling that has a lot of positive praise across really political spectrums. The unfortunate thing is that there's one side of the political spectrum that does not even want to give the film a chance, but those that have had to kind of admit to themselves, yeah, you know what? It's very effective as a comedy. Let's see. Wayward Noodle, who is a member, hail to you. JS Pena, tagging to say, I find it weird how one of the few people who knew Joker 2 would suck. I mean, if Hangover 2 and 3 sucked, then there was no chance in hell the sequel was going to be good. I would disagree with you, JS Pena. I don't think that was enough to be able to predict that this film was going to suck, okay? And the reason why is because no one in their right mind thought that Todd Phillips would be able to make the first Joker film. Because you compare a film like Hangover to Joker, and they're not even on the same level. They're not even close to being on the same level. Joker is that much higher in just the realm of filmmaking in general. So I do think that I would disagree on that specific point. However, if you want to talk about that you had suspicions that he could not finish stories, or maybe there are other films that he has made or other stories that he has done in other mediums that you said, okay, it seems like he's not able to really continue things on. Okay. Fair point. But to say, oh yeah, this alone is how I was able to know. How is it that you were not able to see this thing that seemed obvious? It's like, look, unless you're talking about the way the marketing was being done or some of the choices being made before the film actually came out, okay, people can obviously look into those types of things. But I don't think anyone, and really when you look to it, even before the bad word of mouth on this movie started coming out, you did have some, very few spoilers on the movie coming out from some of those early reviews talking about the aftermath of the movie and kind of where the film leads and where the film ends, which is obviously the cause of much controversy. So I think that may have had an impact on its opening night, but the opening night and opening Friday especially really showed you how far it had fallen from the first. And I think that is where we have to ultimately look at it, is the marketing for the movie clearly was not reaching that same audience. And we'll get to that when we actually get into the opening night numbers, because I think it is important for us to look at that. Anyway, Print Screen, time to say, Joker 2 opened lower than Morbius. Let that sink in. I'm glad it, since I was one of the 5 who actually enjoyed Morbius. There you go. Master of Gaming, what's going on? Forever Sci-Fi, Heimdall, open the Bifrost. Unfortunately, he's dead. Gary Banjo Sandwich, Boomers the cookie again. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, Gary. Okay? It wasn't me who boomered it. I was ready to go. I actually clicked on it to go live, but instead it just died. It just didn't work. I have no idea why it's not working. It's the strangest thing. King Rumsky over on the Green Machine. No problem, but you do know Heimdall isn't a person, right? He's real to me. He's real to me, King Kane Rumsky. Let's see, Mr. Wingster. How about another joke, Murray? Joker 2 box office. Thank you very much, Mr. Wingster, for that $2 super chat. And, oh man, how about another joke, Murray? Joker 2 box office. You get what you deserve. Agreed. Thank you very much, Mr. Wingster. You are awesome. Always appreciate seeing you in the chat. By the way, there were some chats earlier here today, so let me see if I can actually find those earlier chats, because I do want to shout out the people that were here on the YouTubes early, as I think they deserve it. They deserve the praise. They deserve the love. They deserve all of the praise in the world for being here early and for having great conversations and leaving great messages. And I think there's sometimes people who can't make it, further into a stream. So let me see if I can find those comments. I won't be able to pull them up on the screen, unfortunately, but anyway. And it's gone. Why? YouTube, why can't I go back and see the original comments? YouTube has failed me once again. Why am I not surprised, though? This is what happens when I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I got all the stuff ready early today. I'm trying out new things which should streamline the conversations. But no, can't have nice things. Cannot have nice things in that way. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Okay, so I think I can now get rid of this window. And I think I should be okay now. Because, let's see. There's that comment there. There we go. Snorpoopus Cuber saying, alas, poor Heimdall. I knew him. I know him. He lived a very short life. Shorty Shorts. Lived a very, very short life. But unfortunately, yes, I believe Heimdall is dead. I might have to reinstall it. Who knows? Who knows? Mr. Wingster, well, no cookies. I guess I'm out. There it is. This is the real test. Those that stick around even when the cookies are not here. By the way, Ryan, I see you over on X. What's up? He says, hi, this is new. I mean, I always stream to X, actually. I don't know why. I don't know if it necessarily shows that I'm streaming on X or not, but every single week I have it set up to. Now, I did tweet out the stream there today, and I have now been able to. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to try this new thing for the chats, because there were certain features that were not updating in the browser extension that I had, and it was always a pain just to get all that stuff in there. But it was because it could actually pull in X chats. So, yep, Ryan, there he is. Thank you very much for watching over on X. All right, let me get back into the chat. Print screen, no Heimdall, no fun. Agreed. But we'll still have fun, okay? We'll still have fun. JRoar123, Laura saying, the cookies. You put the cookie down. You put it down now. Wendy Hunter, hail to you, Wendy Hunter. Thank you for being here. Rob D, hello, Odin. I know you're not really a comics guy, but do you know about the upcoming DC Finest collections? They're the equivalent of Marvel Epic collections. Neither of those things mean much to me. I have no idea what either of those things are. So as you rightly said, I'm not a comics guy. So a lot of that stuff just goes straight over my bald head. Let's see. Laura saying, my friends saw Joker 2 Friday, and they texted me warning me not to go see it as soon as they got out of the theater. Yeah. I mean, when you understand just how things like CinemaScore, you all know, I think personally is garbage. They don't release a lot of good data when it comes to that. For instance, they don't tell you how many people they surveyed. They don't tell you what markets they're surveying those people in. It's just a score that they put out there, and you're supposed to believe it. It's like fairy dust, right? Whereas a place like PostTrack gives you a little bit more data and information, and it just seems to me to be a lot more reliable. I don't know. I just trust the PostTrack data a lot more. And so when the PostTrack information coming from ComScore was indicating that people coming out of the theater were giving it a half star and that their recommend was very, very low, yeah, it's very easy then to tell about, okay, if you have a very low $7 million opening night and then you have a massive fall off from there, especially as you get into the weekend, yeah, that word of mouth is killing the movie. The movie's killing the movie, but the word of mouth is really, really twisting the knife, as it were. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington, yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to see the earlier chats was because I saw Gary had put some 50% conversations in there, rather 50% jokes in the early chat. By the way, Gary, I'm so mad at you because I went in to Critic List trying to see what the Critic List score currently is for Joker. It's not very good, by the way. It's like getting very close to being in the bogus territory, which it should easily be in. Unfortunately, there are at least 2 people that gave it like 100% or 95% because they're crazy. And then Gary, when he first reviewed it, gave a very terrible review, or rather was jokingly positive about the movie. He said the movie sucked, and then said, oh yeah, I'm going to change my score later. And then when I checked to see, okay, did he finally change his score from being a most excellent? He did. And of course, he put it at a 50% decent score, of which is the most common score he gives to any movie. And it always drives me nuts. Give some variation, man. I feel like he did that just to tick me off, too. He's like, you know what? This is worse than 50%, but I'm just going to list it at 50%. Mr. Wingster saying, Gary, 50% of the time, you like it every time. There you go. Master of Gaming. One reason Joker 2 failed is because it alienated its fan base. To an extent. Right? Here's the thing, right? The movie was already not doing well based off of the Thursday numbers. It only made about $7 million in its Thursday opening. And so I do think that that is something that definitely needs to be addressed and to be mentioned, right? That being said, when you actually look at the movie and then you have the reactions to the movie, yeah, I think that there's a part of it for sure that is that the story the film decides to take in that last act, right, in that last third of the movie, is taking anything that the fans liked about the character, spitting in their face, and laughing at them, essentially. Killing their dreams in many ways. For sci-fi, I'm not spending money at the theaters, so I just bought the A-Team and Airwolf series on DVD for half off. I hope that you meant Blu-ray, because DVD is garbage quality, but I understand and totally support the physical media collection. Cthulhu, owning the Chuds is totally worth losing $200 million of someone else's money. What? Yeah, I guess it is, right? Because ultimately you have to say, yeah, I guess Todd Phillips was like, yeah, it's not my money. It's the studio's money, but then you have to think about, okay, someone at the studio watched that movie. Several people, in fact, watched that movie. And the fact that even they were like, oh yeah, this is fine. At no point in the process did they say, oh yeah, he's totally giving us something that fans want, and he's going to give us another $1 billion film here. But no, it's kind of crazy when you think about all of the things that had to happen in order for this movie to come out. And the fact that they put as much money behind it as they did is just insane to me. Prince Green, hearing all this about Joker 2 makes me think it was made by Disney. It definitely is of Disney quality for sure. Wendy Hunter, what streaming platform is Penguin on? So it's one of those shows that gets an HBO release. So the the terrestrial channel HBO? It's getting released there, and it's also on HBO Max, or just Max now, which I think is a terrible decision on their part to just call it Max. It's just so stupid. It also leaves open so many jokes for Max, right? Maxie, you can go ahead and fill in the rest there. But yeah, it's on HBO, and it's fantastic. Let's see, Gary Banjo Sandwich saying, in Penguin Episode 3, they repeat their big CGI water effect, but it was epic still. And yeah, but honestly, because of the fact that they did that in this as a show, it played a lot better. And as a show, it does not need to be able to have that same effect that a movie does, right? Because you know that shows and series are typically dealing with, as far as just total available funds, not nearly as much. Now, that's not true when it comes to Amazon's Lord of the Rings series or Disney projects, which overspend on everything, right? But typically, in general, you think, okay, a lot more money can go into a movie than to a show, depending on the show, depending on the quality, etc. But it actually works in the show. The movie, as I mentioned, a lot of times those things just don't work nearly as well. But that was not the biggest problem with The Batman. Carl Jacobs tagged to say, Joker 2 is further evidence that unplanned sequels shouldn't be made. Don't make movie 2 just to capitalize on the success of movie 1. And I think that ultimately gets into what likely led to the story that we now have. Mr. Wingster then says, you're welcome. And then Wayward Noodle, okay, and now I believe, yes, I can close this window. Perfect. All right, there we go. Wayward Noodle, time to say mixed feelings. Hurricane descending on Florida, been prepping all day. My show premiered in syndication across the U.S. crime expose with Nancy O'Dell. Hopefully, I'll have a TV to watch after the storm. Well, Wayward Noodle, congratulations on that. That's really cool. And unfortunately, the cool part is a bit outweighed, as you mentioned, by the fact that you have this massive hurricane coming towards you. And yeah, for anyone who is in the Florida area, please make preparations. Get ready, especially if you are in the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. My wife has family down there. They have luckily gotten out, and they've been able to get out of that area because it is looking really, really bad. The fact that this storm is now at a Category 5 status, 180 miles an hour winds, and it's still got so long to go in the Gulf. Like the only positive at this point is that there's going to be wind shear that's going to slow it down, or it's going to rather weaken it. But because of how strong it's getting, and because it's still in the strengthening process, this is a storm that could be one of the strongest storms that has ever existed in the Atlantic Basin, right? Or rather in the Gulf of Mexico. It doesn't have much further to go to get to that point. I believe the record is 190 miles an hour winds. I think there was actually a Hurricane Allen or something to that effect that was able to get to that level, but it's looking like it might be able to match, get very close to matching that. So yeah, this is no joke. And Orlando too. I have a lot of people in Orlando, Geeks Gamers are down there. And sometimes it's very easy to like laugh off storms, but it's going to be like a category 2 potentially, even when it's actually after it's made landfall, still be a category 2 by the time it gets to the Orlando area if it continues on its current track. And if it does, those are devastating winds that could easily take out power. So yes, thoughts and prayers going to everyone in that area. But if you're in the Tampa area, if you're especially along the west coast of Florida, along anything within that cone, please, if you can, if it's possible in any way to get out, please do. Or at least be able to prep, get your things ready, get plenty of water, and get ready for a big one, because it's looking really bad. All right, let's see. Laura, sorry if that was an inappropriate time out. I'm tired. No, not at all. I'm happy in a way because now I don't have to worry about going through all of the different comments there, but I appreciate it nonetheless. So thank you very much for that. Let's see. YouTube me saying it was just a long story. I didn't mean to fill out the chat. Sorry about that. I was responding to the story of how hard it is to see your child suffer. Oh, yeah. And again, obviously, I never want to tear down anybody for sharing a story, like a personal story by any means. But at the same time, you know, we do have to try to we do try to keep the chat as much. So sorry if that's ever happened to you, because obviously I think a lot of us can connect with it. And even if it's something as small as a small surgery like mine, we all know, as anyone who's a parent knows, to see your child not even just suffer, but also go through something that, you know, there's always that chance of something bad happening, especially, you know, for her, she's the first time that she's ever received anesthesia. And so it's like, okay, anesthesia can be something that can have very bad effects. The saddest part of it all, though, was when she woke up, because and they warned us about it too, but literally it became like a wet noodle. So like we had to like treat her like a newborn again, where we had to like support her head because she would literally just like just flop down. And I felt so bad because I'm like holding her. You know, we went in there for 6:30 and we're out of there pretty quickly. Maybe about 8:30 or so, I think was when we finally got out. So I'm holding my baby girl, and because my wife oftentimes has a reaction to anesthesia where she gets sick, it looks like baby girl's got this too. And so I'm holding her, and then all of a sudden, you know, she's been drinking a lot of fluids, right, trying to get them down. She just vomits. Like, luckily it was all like clear, but yeah, vomits on me twice. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I was holding her, because for me, body fluids don't bother me nearly as much, especially if it's my kids, because it's like, no, I'm sorry, like they're my kids. I just, there's that weird connection you get where it's like, yeah, I know I could get sick from them and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like they're an extension of me. And so it's like, nah, it just doesn't bother me as much. Whereas my wife, again, obviously she wouldn't like freak out or anything in the moment, but I know deep inside it would bother her quite a bit if that had happened to her. So I'm just like, let it out, girl. Just let it out. But yeah, poor baby got sick. But again, within about an hour, she went home, got to get a really solid like 2.5 hour nap in. And once she got up from her nap, she was actually pretty much back to normal. The only creepy thing was, and this was luckily they told us about it, because if you've ever gotten tubes, or if maybe you haven't gotten them and you will in the future, just know that there's probably going to be blood coming from their ears. So that was a bit of experience, because I'm like, oh my gosh, my daughter is bleeding from her ears. What? Again, thank y'all for telling us that was going to happen. Because yeah, when you wake your child up and then you see these massive blood stains on their bed, you're like, ah, until you're like, okay, luckily we were warned about it. We know. But that was the worst part of it. But luckily, yeah, as of today, she was back at school and doing great. Let's see. Mr. Wingster, who's a member, saying, I still prefer road trip and old school, from Todd. There you go. I didn't know. I forget that he did old school. J.S. Pena. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, again, I respect your thoughts on it for sure. Guy, or Guy. What's going on, Guy? Ben Burt said, I saw Whitebird yesterday and loved it, but I feel like no one is talking about it. Do you think it would have performed better if it hadn't been delayed for release due to COVID plus the strike? Good question. Honestly, I do not think that it would have done much better. And the reason why I think that is because it is a bit of an obscure continuation of a story. So for those that don't know about Whitebird, it is actually a continuation, almost like a sequel or a spin-off, I guess would be the better word for it. It's a spin-off from the movie Wonder, which came out in 2017. A film directed by Steven Chbosky, and it was really, really good. I mean, Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson were in it. Jacob Tremblay gave this amazing performance. I believe it got, if it didn't get awards recognition, it really should have. And compared to its budget, it did really well, right? A $20 million budget for that movie, and then ended up making around $315 million overall. So pretty good. I think that movie, though, came out at the right time and was able to reach out to families in many ways that this current one wasn't. Because the other issue with Whitebird, I think, is that it's much more of a faith-based movie. Now, that's not to say that there may not have been similar vibes to Wonder, but it definitely did not really play as that, right? It felt much more like just this general human story about this kid with a facial deformity, kind of like this Elephant Man situation, but instead for a kid. And so basically this newer one is a spinoff of that, where the bully, or one of the prime bullies from the film Wonder, it's now about his story, about, okay, now he's got kicked out of school, now he's moved somewhere else. So what is the story of what he has to go through instead? And I think that ultimately it would have done bad either way. I really do. Because this one, again, came from some of the similar companies, but also came from Kingdom Story, which I don't think was involved in the last one. Also a different director this time around. You had Helen Mirren in this one, Gillian Anderson also in the film too, and a similar budget of $20 million. So there's no doubt that COVID had a huge impact on all box office. There's no doubt about that. One of the biggest things I think that was impacted were the mid to low budget movies. We really just haven't seen that happen of success. The point is, though, you still can see success from those things. And it ultimately comes down to word of mouth and quality of movie. And what we've seen is that when you've got the word of mouth and the quality, I think an example of Longlegs, right? Not my genre, but I've heard good things about it, and it got a very strong word of mouth campaign. That movie was able to do so much better than its budget, and also for comparison to a lot of the other films that were out around the same time. For this one, I honestly do not think that it's able to reach that same level. And I'm happy to hear that a lot of people who are seeing the movie are actually really enjoying it. I know that Alan Ng from Film Threat, great channel, Film Threat, he also had a lot of positive things to say about the movie. But he did kind of give some of that caveat of it's got that faith-based vibe to it in some ways. And that is just not something that really appeals to a lot of people, myself included. Those kinds of movies tend to not be interesting. And this movie, honestly, I don't think was marketed well. I think that was actually even the bigger issue, is COVID is there for sure. That's kind of a given for any movie, but the marketing also, I don't think was very good, because I never even saw a trailer for it. Anyway, Guy, How to Joker 2 cost more than the first one did. They used the whole budget on the songs they used in the movie. I mean, it could be the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if Joaquin Phoenix maybe demanded more money for his contract to be in the movie. Lady Gaga obviously came at a cost as well. So that probably has, in and of itself, for those actors, you might have maybe not $50 million, but again, you're talking about a big chunk of your movie's budget probably just covering those two actors. You had a lot of other actors in the movie too, that's, some of them bigger than others, but still a lot. You have that music there. Maybe the rights could have cost something potentially, but even then, I don't know really if that would be the case. There isn't a lot of CGI, and I think it is, again, ultimately a really good question of where is that money actually spent? Because there really isn't a whole lot on screen. And yeah, when you make that first movie for as little as you do, especially in comparison, it does make you kind of scratch your head a little bit. Rob D, we need a stream discussing part 2 movies that are better than the first, and part 2 films that are worse than the first. That could be a fun topic, for sure. The first thing that comes to mind is Back to the Future, for sure. Prince Scream brings up a good one as well. Empire Strikes Back, absolutely. King and Rumsky says, it's joking time. Yeah, absolutely. Always at 8 p.m. So I'm 20 minutes behind, everybody. Apologies for taking as long as I am. Mr. Wingster, Odin, want to know how I got these scars? From some guy named Arthur, I guess. Seriously? Oh, yes. That's exactly what the ending of the movie. It makes everything about the Nolan version of Joker so much less interesting. It really does. It really just destroys any sense of the origin story of Joker. And I was really enjoying this more grounded origin story for him. And there were a lot of things they could have done in this movie, and they were actually doing a lot of them until the courtroom scene at the very end, where things just fall apart. That, to me, is just when this whole story becomes complete garbage. I know there's others who would say, oh, it's worse before then. Oh, there are scenes before that. And, oh, the musicals. The people who are going after this, by the way, who are like, oh, it's a musical. Why would anyone want to watch? It's like, just shut up. I'm sorry. Like, that's like the worst argument you can make against this movie. Oh, it's a musical. There's a lot of films that are musicals. Films that you maybe even forget are musicals. We were having this conversation on the Salty Saturday stream, and someone had a really good shout out in the chat for a film that most people wouldn't see as a musical, but is Blues Brothers. It's a phenomenal movie, and it's also a musical. So that whole dynamic of it just being a musical is not in and of itself bad. And also, if you say audiences don't like musicals, unless you're going to give a time frame on that, that's also just inherently incorrect, because there was a huge time in Hollywood where musicals were the biggest movies that you could ever see. Not just the productions, but as far as the crowds going to see them. It's a bad argument. It is a very bad argument. But there's a lot of other good arguments, especially when you look into the the rest of it. Let's see. YouTube me. Thank you for the super sticker. And thank you for 2 super stickers. I don't know why they did not show up in the thing here, in the alerts here. I don't know. I don't understand, but thank you very much. All right, let's see. Laura, hanging out. Hardwick, Joker was already nihilistic. I don't see why anyone expected the sequel to not be. No. So you misunderstand Hardwick, okay? We're not talking about the character being nihilistic. It's more about the only way you can really justify the director's decisions, right? The writer's decisions on this movie are if they are coming at it from a completely nihilistic standpoint. And it's not just about like, oh, nothing matters. It's more about how he is trying to frame this in the context of it being a sequel to a billion-dollar film. That to me, I think, is the bigger thing. And again, we'll get into it further. Don't jump ahead. All right. Heartbreak Rage, thank you for being a member for 10 months in a row at the Citizen of Asgard level. Hail to you. Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member, saying, bought them on DVD. 80s TV shows don't really get improved by Blu-ray. Depends on the show. Depends on the show and also how it was filmed. Because I feel like even in the 80s, there were a lot of shows that were still being shot on film. Heartbreak Rage. Honestly, I'm not sure how you pay Gaga $10 million and make it a musical and then have the musical parts be so meh and not advance the plot in any notable way. I think that's the fair point. It's not about the musicals itself. It's about how the musicals were utilized. Yeah, because it is kind of a waste. Because there are some really good musical moments in there, but then you think about the entire length of the movie being over 2 hours, and then you think about how much of those moments are actually musical. It's so little. It's so little in comparison to the rest of the film. And so you're right. The way that the scenes happen, when they happen, what the actual songs are and what they mean and how they are speaking to the story and continuing to push the story forward. Yeah, it's a problem. Massive Gaming. Do you think The Wild Robot will return to the #1 spot this weekend? Hard to say. Hard to say. And it's because, for one, I always need to have a release schedule in front of me because you just never know what is getting released. So this weekend, oh boy, everyone I'm sure is excited to go see The Apprentice. Yes, that's right. It's a Hollywood movie all about Donald Trump. Coming out during an election year. Oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine how awful it'll be. Oh, man. Because I'm sure everyone wants to see that. So The Apprentice is out there. You then have My Hero Academia, the movie. You're next. Okay. Anime fans excited about that. The Night Before Christmas gets a re-release. So there's that. Piece by Piece. Saturday Night, which I've seen a little bit of, and it actually looks like a lot of fun. But it's not going to be a big moneymaker by any means. And then Terrifier 3. So yeah, not a whole lot coming out this weekend. So because of that, not a whole lot of competition. And I would not be surprised to see Joker's box office coming in to an insanely low degree. So tomorrow we'll be interested to watch as those Monday numbers get reported. Because if the Monday numbers come in and they are massively down, and we see like 75+% drop off between Sunday and Monday after an already incredibly low opening weekend, oh boy, is it going to get even worse? Is it going to get even worse? All right, let me try and get through a few more because I was trying to catch up after the nonsense that happened earlier in the stream. So that way we can jump into the actual topics themselves, because we are going to break down the box office numbers. We're going to talk about my thoughts on the movie as well. But yes, Gary Banjo Sandwich, absolutely going to be praying for everybody there for sure. Master Gaming, how big do you think Joker 2 will drop off second weekend? Depends on the Monday drop. It would not surprise me to see the drop 60% plus, which for a movie like it would be really bad. Also wouldn't surprise me to see it drop 70% plus either. So it's gonna be a pretty massive drop, no matter which way it goes, for sure. Alrighty then. Dragon Bricks hanging out. What is going on? Hardwick, have you seen the trailer for Monster Summer? Yes. It's a children's horror movie along the lines of Stranger Things, starring Mel Gibson, featuring Kevin James and Lorraine Bracco. Yeah, I saw it, and honestly, I was very surprised to see Mel Gibson in it. I was like, Mel Gibson seems too big for this movie. So I don't have a lot of interest in it, to be honest. All right, let's see. Heartbreak says, Film Threat makes their own POV clear and often likes a film while not liking a film's politics. Yep. They are usually very good about separating art from the artist, for sure. Dragon Bricks, Teen Wolf 2. You would not know if this was better or worse than the first since you've never watched the first one. This is very true, Dragon Bricks. I was going to be like, why are you bringing those up? I've never seen them. Wendy Hunter, good musicals are always fun, in my opinion. Agreed. It does have to be good. It does have to be good. That is for sure. Caveat Times, don't you dare go after Blues Brothers 2000, okay? Because, yeah, that movie, okay, it's got problems, no doubt about it. But is it fun? Is it entertaining? You're darn right it is. It is a darn entertaining film, and a lot of it's because that score is phenomenal. I'm looking for the fox. Man, Blues Traveler song in there. I love it. That's a fun movie. It's not as good as the first one, quality-wise, but it is fun. Can't take that away from it. Heartbreak Ridge. I love musicals, and I'm one of the dozen people who liked Cop Rock back in the day, but just on that Joker 2 was disappointing. Yeah, agreed. It wasn't even a good musical. Ram D. I don't know if White Christmas is a musical, but that was a great movie. I would say so. If there's musical sequences in the movie, that makes it, by definition, a musical. I've actually never seen Cop Rock, so interesting. Or rather, I don't know what that is. Laura, Empire Strikes Back was a musical too. She goes, stop it now. Oh man, love that song so much. When baby Thor was growing up, he's still growing up. He's turning 4 in 6 days. That's crazy to me. But when we were watching a few things now and then and listening to music, that came on and he loved it. He loved that song so much. And now that he's older and can understand it a bit more, I actually really want to reintroduce that one just to see his reaction again. King and Rumsky, why is Lady Gaga even still a thing? Well, she's talented. She is talented. A Star is Born, I think, really showed the talent that she has as a singer, but also that she's got some acting chops as well. Her acting was not a problem in this movie at all. The writing of her character was problematic, but her herself is not. Rockin' and rollin'. See, that also just brings back memories too of bad lip readings. Back to like 2016, GOP primary is probably my favorite overall. I have a pigeon, Lucas Don Velour. It's something the tuna melt does to me. Oh, I love that. Mr. Wingster, an early day for me tomorrow. Good night, peoples. Good night to you. Steven, back in the chat. Great to see you live again. I'm currently in college, and my classes are the same time as your live stream, so I haven't been on. How have you been praying for your safety due to the hurricane coming? Your streams, your classes are at 7:45 p.m. at night? That's a weird class to have, dude. You need to next semester get up early so that you can schedule your so you can schedule your classes better. I know everyone's going to like, oh, yeah, you should just go for the later classes because then you get to sleep in. Oh, no. I would say going back especially, would take those early classes any day because guess what? You get up early. If you're not a morning person, I get it. But you get up early, you get to your class, guess what? You have the whole rest of your day ahead of you. It's phenomenal. Let's say you do the other, you sleep in, you go to class, and then your day is essentially gone. I learned that in my first years at college. Caveat time, Sensei Christian Toto had his review of The Apprentice out. It's not good. Our scene was terrible. Oh boy. That's right. This is the movie that has that. I think hasn't Trump and others been trying to sue them over it as well? I guess that didn't go through. Can't say I'm that surprised, but man, yeah. Definitely have no interest in seeing that. King and Rumsky, how would you compare Meg and Meg 2? I'll ask you, King and Rumsky. You are clearly the expert on all things Meg. Short, is Priscilla Queen of the Desert a musical? I mean, nobody is singing. I would have to say, I guess not. Caveat ties. Okay, I was just making sure. That's why I was saying it, okay? Oh, you need to see the OG, caveat ties. Watch the OG. How do you watch Blues Brothers 2000 and not have seen Blues Brothers? There's so many contextual things that are important there. Oh, man. Southeastern Kaiju. She's not an actor. She's a movie star. Heartbreak Ridge. Cop Rock was a police procedural musical TV series by the guy who created Hill Street Blues, and it was starring Ronnie Cox. Interesting. Only got a few episodes, not even a full season if I recall correctly. Dang. Laura, the bad lip reading Twilight vids were the best. I've only seen like maybe a couple of those, but yes, agreed. Lex Ladendi, ahoy! Odin, what's going on, Lex Ladendi? Welcome back. Steven, Odin, no brother. My classes are 3 p.m. I'm from West Coast, remember? Ends at 6 p.m. When you were in college, did you take late night classes? Nope, I did not. The latest class I think I ever took in college, undergrad, was 1 p.m. Was I think the latest. Maybe there was a lab I had to do later, but 1 p.m. was the latest that I ever had a class. So that's right. You're one of those West Coasters, man. The West Coast time thing, y'all just need to stop with all that, okay? We need to have like a standard time, okay? I don't care if it's Central or Eastern time. Pick one of them and just be like, that's the time for everybody. Whether you have sun or not, shouldn't matter. Let's just take care of all this like, oh, what time is it in your neck of the woods? Let's just have that universal like 24-hour clock or whatever be like, oh, okay. Be easier for me to remember, oh, that's right, 9 p.m. my time is night where you are or is morning where you are, than it would be to be like, oh, what time zone is that? At least for me. I don't know about anybody else. But that's how I would feel. It clearly says, Blues Brothers is so overrated compared to everything that came out that year. There, I admitted the truth everyone knows. How dare you say that, Cthulhu? Patui, I spit at you. I spit at you. Cthulhu. All right. Now that I've caught up with the chat, let's actually dive into some of the numbers here. And I will preempt this because King Kane Rumsky, I know what you and the people want.
Time to see a real mathematician at work.
It is time for some math. All right, let's dive into it. So, if you thought that the numbers for Joker 2 were bad, oh, just you wait. So, I've got my little chart up here. We love charts here on OMB Reviews. And this is my rated R chart. So, I originally had this up to have a comparison between Deadpool and Wolverine's numbers versus that of The Passion. And just to give you an idea of overall ticket sales. Now, I've not updated that number in quite a long time. So, if you're like, wait a minute, why is Deadpool Wolverine only at 395, that is the reason why, okay? So I need to update that later on. But the point of that was just to show you, hey, guess what? Passion is still one of the highest grossing rated R films of all time, even when compared to Deadpool Wolverine. I do not know the current domestic numbers on that film, at least as of right now. That being said, let's get back into the Joker. So the Joker 2. How bad did it do? Well, let's go ahead and do some comparisons here. So the first movie that came out in 2019, when you adjust those numbers for inflation, because you got to always do that to make things fair, had an opening weekend of $116 million. So a very impressive opening weekend for a rated R film, especially for a movie that no one really had really no expectations for to any wide degree until the movie actually came out. The word of mouth on that movie was phenomenal. And it pushed it to not only get to well over $300 million here domestically, but the reason why it even made almost well over $1 billion, in fact, when you adjust that number for inflation, is because it made like $800+ million internationally. So this thing was a huge hit, both domestically where it did strong, but even more so internationally. And that's why I mentioned this in my box office breakdown video this past weekend, that Joker 2's only chance of being able to even survive, and I put that in air quotes, basically for it to not be as massive of a flop as it could be with a $200 million budget, is if those international audiences still show up in the same way. So I'm actually more interested in the week 2 drop amongst the international community than I am amongst the domestic. Because right now, the domestic, we ain't showing up for this movie. North American audiences do not want this movie, do not like this movie, and it very much clearly shows. Because whereas Joker 1 made $116 million, we just got the adjusted numbers for the actuals from this weekend. So we know how the actuals for the weekend were indicating it made around $40 million. Okay, this was after the projections early on had said, oh yeah, it's going to make around $50 million, maybe over $50 million, right? The original range was like 50 to 60. And then Deadline came out after the $7 million Thursday opening, the Thursday premiere numbers. And with the $7 million, they said, okay, it's slowing down, but it's still aiming at 50. And then it ended up coming in only at 40. Well, it's now been readjusted down to $37.6 million. So made less than $40 million. So about $13 million less than what was initially anticipated. That is a sign of bad word of mouth, ladies and gentlemen. What's even worse, though, is when you compare those ticket sales. So whereas the first movie on the opening weekend sold about 10.5 million tickets in its opening, this new film, Joker 2, or Joker Folie à Deux, sold only 2.8 million tickets in its opening weekend. Oof. It also helps to show us that when it comes to the differences between these movies, it's not even that Joker 2 made half of what the first one made. We're talking about Joker 2 only making about a third of what the first film made in just its domestic opening. If the drop-offs continue, as they have been pacing this past weekend, right, from the Thursday to Friday, Friday to Saturday, etc., if that continues, if that trend continues. So someone's question earlier, could a film like The Wild Robot actually finally get the #1 spot at the box office? Yeah, I would say that's possible. It would also be possible for a film like even Beetlejuice to be able to get back into the #1 comparison, or rather the #1 spot at the box office. So these are just, again, abysmal numbers for this movie. Just to show you those day-to-day numbers again, $39 million, this is when you actually look at the actuals. Let's go ahead and adjust for inflation because we've got to keep things fair here between these two movies. So $46 million opening day. That's Thursday and Friday numbers coming together. Joker Folie à Deux only made 20.2. So that means that about $13 million was made on Friday, $7 million on Thursday. Whereas in the case of Joker, since I don't remember the exact opening night numbers because this does not go back for any reason to that first Thursday, yeah. So you're already down half. Then you see 46 to 38 to 28 for Joker 1, 20 to 11 to 6. Single digits. Oof. Oh boy. Now, their adjustment for inflation does not account for current modern inflation, which is why the numbers are slightly different. That being said, that is really bad. Now let's go ahead and pull up the numbers here just to give us an idea. So as I'd mentioned, with a film like Joker likely going to have a massive drop-off in its second weekend of release, probably well north of $50 million, probably in the 60 to 70 plus million dollars, 60 to 70% drop range, I personally think at least. And no major releases coming out next weekend. They're going to have any real competition. I think it's going to be a battle between Wild Robot and Beetlejuice. The reason why is because while Wild Robot is holding strong, week 2 only dropped 47%. Beetlejuice, 5 weeks out, only dropped 37%. And even at that 37% drop, only made about $8 million less than the Wild Robot did, having an extra 3 weeks in its actual release schedule. So I think actually also this speaks to the fact that next weekend is going to be an abysmal weekend at the box office. You look and see what they did here, okay? They had no other real major releases going up against Joker last weekend. They also clearly saw this movie as enough of a threat. Again, that first movie made over $1 billion. So they thought that this film would be enough of a threat just because it is a continuation of that first movie. And they thought, oh, of course, this is going to have the same level of success. that no major studio put any of their babies, put none of their releases out that next weekend. So that's going to lead then to a dead box office weekend where Joker is going to be basically fighting for his life just to get first place again at the box office, and will very likely not be able to do that, and instead will lose to what will likely be 2 movies in The Wild Robot and Beetlejuice that will hold very strong, and I think will be a big part of that conversation for movies to get in the top 1 or 2 spots. Now, what would be hilarious to me is if the Joker 2's drop-off is just so catastrophic that it not only drops out of the number 1 spot, which it should have had easily, if the film had even been half good, if that ending had not happened the way that it did, you would have a very different conversation. But because that is not the case that we have here, guess what? That means Joker 2 has a good chance of even potentially getting so little, it maybe even drops into the number 3 spot at the box office. Now, if any of that happens, that's going to be really, really bad. But what say you? Those are the numbers. Let's dive back into the chat. Let's see. Wendy Hunter says, my bachelor's program only offered night classes. Yeah, that's why I mentioned in my undergrad, when I did grad school, there were night classes. But that was also a very weird schedule because as someone who was working, it was a Saturday school. So we would start from like 8:30 in the morning until maybe 5 p.m. And so we got several classes worth of content within that single day. And we only would do that maybe once, once every couple weeks? If it wasn't just once a week, then it was like once every couple weeks or once a month. So that's the reason why we did it that way, because then you could do several classes, but then not have to worry about coming in all the time. And it was a lot better for people who had working schedules. But there were a couple classes where the only way it was offered was once or twice a week in the evening time. So during my graduate program, that is when I took night classes. Rob D. Some classes at my college were only available once a week from 8:30 p.m. to 11, and the classes were mandatory degree requirements. Dang, dude. Wow. Forever Sci-Fi, I always preferred the late night classes because they were usually once a week, and I hate morning classes. Yep, totally get that. Totally get that. Keely Chow, you have a good night. Print Screen, I'm heading out early. Got that one already. Wendy Hunter says, yay, I love the math. Everyone loves the math. Kate Rumsky saying, that's the stuff. Math. Everyone loves it. Cthulhu, can we get a special event from you where you review the math play EFAP style? I don't know if I'd be able to because I'd just be having so much fun watching it. That would be a good idea of something to watch, though, on the Discord. I would be totally open to doing a film screening, a screening of that show on the Discord server because my wife was an early backer. This was a show that was on Kickstarter. At least as far as the filming of it was concerned, because it was an off-Broadway show, and then they decided that they wanted to film it, and obviously that's not cheap, and so they did a Kickstarter. So after we saw the show, my wife was like totally backing the Kickstarter, and we did, and so we were able to get a digital copy of it. So I have that available, and so I would be totally open to showing you all that show because it's great. Yeah, it's not a musical for those that don't like musicals. Instead, it is a play, but it's a hilarious play. And if you're a fan of Harry Potter, especially, it's a great riff on it. All right, Hardwick, have you ever seen Bad Lip reading Redneck Avengers? I have not, but I'm gonna say not interested. So don't share a video link with me. I'm okay. Let's see, Laura Odin. Oof. Would make a good one-word movie review for so many movies. Yes, this is very true. Cthulhu, just to share minutes, Edge shared an update. It only made $37 million this past weekend, and I've already mentioned that, Cthulhu. I'm on top of it, okay? Tom knows this stuff, all right? But I'm better. I love Tom, but I'm better than Tom. I'm kidding. We're maybe equal. We're both bald, right? We have facial hair. We talk movies, physical media, box office. He has a much broader range of interest in movies, though, than I do. That's for sure. Man, Caveat Ties. Yeah, but The Apprentice is going to do gangbusters. No, it's not. It's going to be a massive, catastrophic failure. The only people that have any interest in that movie, okay, are crazy TDS types. And the fun fact about crazy TDS types is that they are typically not the ones who go to movies en masse. They're not the ones actually spending the money to go see movies. If they were, then a lot of the as we often call them, go woke, get broke movies, would not be losing money. The Marvels would have been a massive success. Do you all remember the film Bros? That film would have been a massive hit, but that did not actually happen because they don't put their money where their mouth is. And so if all that you have is TDS to sell them on and a movie, they're not going to buy it. They're not going to have any interest in it. So yeah, it's going to be really bad. In fact, I'm actually kind of interested and intrigued by if there are any, because obviously there are no box office previews for this coming weekend, but I do know that when it comes to, oh yeah, this is that's about what I expected. So Box Office Theory, as you all know, that they're typically a site I like to go to for box office stuff. So their early tracking on the movie. Now, again, this is still as of 10/3, so as a few days ago. They were tracking The Apprentice to make a whopping 5.5 million. So that's not going to be number one film territory. In fact, that's not even going to be top 3 territory. And that's assuming that this film is actually tracking higher, right? So he says that based on his tracking, it was actually doing 38% better. Could be the fact that it's a movie that's, again, trying to get to those TDS types. So yeah, you could see that. Obviously, there are some TDS types that do go see movies, that do support them. We know that they exist. You just look at John Campea, okay? He's got a big show. He talks about movies. He is also someone, clearly, who has a bit of a derangement when it comes to a certain orange man. There's also people... there's plenty of other people, too. I blanked on her name for a second, but so... you know exactly who I'm talking about there. I can only keep so many people's names in my mind at a given time, but I'm sure that they'll go see the movie. I'm sure that they'll have a lot of interest in the film, and they probably will even praise it as well for being realistic and so important, when in reality it's just meant to reiterate your own thoughts and preconceived notions that you already have based off of information that in all likelihood is completely made up and false. And I think probably should be investigated as far as whether or not it should be even allowed to exist, as does it really fit into not being, what's the word, libelous, slanderous in content, in tone? I don't know. But they're projecting right now the target forecast, total domestic, to be $17.9 million. And let's go ahead and do a quick search on this. Apprentice 2024. What we got? A $16 million budget. Yeah, guess what? The fact it's tracking higher and its total domestic is said to be set at 17.9. No international audience is going to see this movie, by the way. Yeah, that's not enough to make up for even a $16 million budget. So essentially, this movie ain't making nothing. This film will be a flop. It'll be a low-budget flop, but if these numbers hold, that's not going to make any money. And money is the name of the game. Steven, I say, I heard once approaching bachelor-level courses, night classes are only available in the evening. Interesting. Very interesting. Wendy Hunter, I agree with Shorty Short on the word oof. Yes, agreed. She appreciates that. Cthulhu, sign me up for the Discord review. Yeah. I'm off this week. It's fall break this week, so I might be able to have a screening or two of Puffs. It's called Puffs, by the way, and it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. Anyway, Hardwick. Trump did try to sue to keep The Apprentice from getting a wide release. It depicts him assaulting his first wife and graphic scenes of him getting liposuction and hair transplants. Yeah, and it's really that first one that is, it seems to be on the edge of slanderous content, libelous, slanderous content, right? It's depicting somebody who currently is during an election year running for office, and you are portraying an event which, again, I've actually not heard of as far as conversation. There's a lot of conversation about the E. Jean Carroll case, which is hilarious to me because there are people who are like, yeah, but he was held libelous for assault. And all I can think of is, but wait a minute, doesn't that only mean that he was held to be libelous, meaning that the judge in that case or the court in that case decided that he lied, but then they couldn't actually convict him of the criminal crime? It's like, wait a minute, hold on. you're trying to make this connection that he did this terrible deed, but you can't actually convict him of the crime itself. It seems to be a bit of a problem there from just a narrative standpoint, because you would think if he actually had committed this crime and you had proof of it, that he would be criminally convicted of said crime. But he wasn't even done that. That's why always pay attention to the way that they use the language there, because you listen to it like, wait a minute. He was held libelous for assault? Wait, hold on. What does that even mean? It's like, oh, his words. Oh, okay. But what about the act itself? Did he do the thing? Did he do the terrible thing? We can't do... Oh, that's a big problem if you can't prove that in a criminal case. Sorry, like that's kind of important. Kind of important piece of detail. So the fact that they're kind of going that route with it, yeah. I mean, I'm not for censorship, but at the same time, if you are going to present something in that way and you're going to do something that is meant to demean the person's character and is going to be meant to portray the person doing something so horrendous and it's not actually based in fact, that's a bit of a problem. Because again, that's the first I've actually even heard that was even accused in any way. But I also really don't care a whole lot about the lives and histories of politicians in general. So... Anyway, King and Rumsky says, are you better than Culture Casino, though? In many ways, no. In some ways, yes, but in many ways, no. I'll let you try to figure out those ways. Laura's saying, I think the issue is more wokies have no money. That's a good point, too. That's the other problem. When you go into college and are brainwashed by your professors and you're convinced that you have to get a gender studies major, guess what? Yeah, you don't get a lot of money from jobs that actually value that as a degree. Steven, are you going to release a review video for The Apprentice movie? Curious your input before deciding to see the movie. No, I'm not. I have no interest in seeing that movie. I don't even have an interest in watching it through the high seas. I'm going to be honest. I really just don't. I don't think it's worthy of my time or of any brain cells being wasted on it. And I don't even think that's something that we're going to be watching for FNT. The only way I'd ever consider it would be if it was like Homer for FNT. But even that, I think, is something where it's like, I'm hoping and praying that Gary's not going to have that be a thing. Let's see. Gary says, I hear that The Apprentice has a good shot at being a magnificent hit. Not based on those numbers. Hose a Taco. What's up, Hose a Taco? Did you have a local subscription to your theater? Subscription to your theater. It's like $18 for unlimited movies at my local Regal. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. I have AMC A-list. So sometimes people say, why are you watching this movie? Why are you giving them money? I have AMC A-list. I actually don't know. I would love to find out from an AMC higher up exec how that works. So I have 3 free movies every week. So you pay like $20, $21 a month and you get the AMC A-list. And if you see a lot of movies like I do, or at least I try to do, I definitely see enough to make the subscription worth it. That's for sure. But I can see a movie in IMAX. If my theater had Dolby, I could see it in Dolby. But I could see it in any format, and I can see 3 movies every single week, all included in this subscription. It's a monthly subscription. So if you see a lot of movies, it's so well worth it. It is so well worth it. So yes, I do have the A-list. I also have Movie Pass, which is, I have the one that's $10 a month. And for that one, you can you can see movies at different theaters. I've used it only one time, though. That's one that I definitely have not gotten my money's worth, for sure. But I have it because if there's ever a time when I need to see more than 3 movies, I can use that, and it does save me money on the ticket. And I've used it once to be able to do that. In fact, it was a weird situation, and I'm happy that I had it because what had happened was AMC A-List has gone through some weird funks where I'll have a movie scheduled and then cancel it, and it'll still count it. So I had a week where I had 3 movies counted for the week, and I was trying to go see a movie on a Thursday for a premiere, and it said, you can't do that because you've already got your 3 movies. I'm like, no, I canceled 2 of those movies, and I did it well within the time, so there was an error in the app, essentially. And I was like, all right, this isn't worth it. So I was able to check in. Now you can do it even online. You don't have to be at the actual theater to do it. And I was able to get my ticket to a movie, and I was like, okay, great. Movie Pass, used it once, and it worked. Yay. But I think it's great, though. I think that those subscription services are really great for people that enjoy a lot of movies, for sure. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. It's just lawfare. Agreed, Laura. All around, it is, For sci-fi, they're taking figurative and literal shots at him in this election. I can't see the movie having the kind of impact they want. Yeah, again, no one's going to see it. But the thing is, I don't think they were expecting it to make money. All they care about are the headlines because mainstream media is going to talk about it. So even if the film makes nothing and it's going to bomb at the box office based on the numbers that we're seeing right now, they have the headlines, they have the stories, and all that you need is to get the stories of the film or of those moments in the film into the mainstream, and that is how you get your money's worth in their minds. They don't mind, they don't care about losing money as long as they get their money's worth in the election and other areas. Steven, do you think Joker 2 negative feedback coming from the United States will affect worldwide box office? I personally do. I do think that typically when a film gets very, very, very bad word of mouth in the United States, it's usually global. There isn't usually a huge discrepancy. I don't know of a movie. We know of plenty of movies that do better internationally, right? There are some movies where it's like insane comparison of domestic to international, but I don't know any offhand who did poor, like underperformed to an insane degree domestically, flopped domestically, was rejected and hated domestically, but then did amazing and was accepted and loved internationally. I don't know of any examples of that. And I doubt that will happen here. Duncan Blackthorn, what's going on? Tina B says, well, I got bored with Joker 2 reviews and started watching Bar Rescue. One disaster to another. Hello. Can't stay. And Culture Casino has an awesome beard. I agree. Gatekeeper. Hey, bud. It's been really hard for me to catch up you guys recently. I hope all's well with you. Keep up the great work, bud. Hey, no problem, Gatekeeper. Appreciate you, man. And thank you also for the very generous $10 super chat. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you. And the simple message is love you. Well, I love you too, Gatekeeper. Thanks for being here. Thulu. Hey now, my gender studies doctorate has gotten me an excellent job at Starbucks. Good coffee can only be made by cultist faith in communism, I guess. Well, if you watch the film Am I Racist, guess what? You can also somehow get paid tens of thousands of dollars as well, just to appear in a movie and not have to say a whole lot. Because you can demand that of others. Because of reasons. Or sci-fi. Do the subscriptions affect how much the studios take in one movie? Okay, now I remember. All right, my brain was lost for a moment. So now I remember. So that was the question I was going to ask is I would love to get a executive from Amazon, from AMC, from Regal, from any of the studios, from any of the theater chains, and ask them, so when I buy a ticket, right, when I claim one of my 3 movies, is it that entire ticket price goes directly to the studio? Or is it that since I'm already paying you up front, you're just letting me go see the movie? Now, to me, it would actually be hilarious if this was somehow a workaround for AMC and other chains to be like, oh yeah, we don't have to actually pay the studios for any of our subscriber base because of how the subscription works. That'd be amazing. My assumption is that the studio does get the typical cut, that it's no different than an actual exchange, but the fact still remains that they do still have to make their money off of that subscription service. And so my guess is that the mindset is, well, most people don't go to see a whole lot of movies in a given time, right? There are going to be months where someone sees maybe one movie, and so at the end of the day, they still get a profit from that person because the person's still paying this guaranteed amount. That could be the case. But yeah, I would love to find out more about it. Tina says, hi, Laura, I got to go wash my dinner dishes. Y'all take care. You as well. Let's see. Hardwick. They took the allegation in the movie from sworn divorce testimony by Ivana Trump. However, she later recanted and said she was being overly dramatic because it was an emotional time. And they went with it anyway. So yeah, definitely sounds like they are just running on empty when it comes to their ideas. It is. Now, caveat ties, it did go under, and luckily it did, because it was, I still remember, it was when, what was his name? It wasn't Rob Lowe, but his last name was Lowe. He was the CEO of MoviePass, and he killed it. He ran that thing into the ground, and it was so sad just to see him do it. Now, it was dead for like a couple of years, and then the original CEO, or one of the original minds behind MoviePass, bought the rights to it cheaply and then revived it. So it's been revived now for, I think, the better part of a year, maybe even more at this point. And it is a much more sustainable model. So basically, you pay a monthly rate and you get a certain number of credits. And with those credits, you can use those credits on movies. And so a movie on a weekend will cost more credits. So you might be able, on 10 months, $10 a month, you might be able to see up to 2 mainstream movies a month. So that's still a pretty good deal, right? If you're like, hey, if I go to see 2 movies every single month, $10 a month is actually well worth it because I'll have enough in there to be able to do that. It is limited in that it won't let you see 3D or IMAX yet. I think they're working on ways to basically you pay more, you use more credits to be able to get that. And it does work. So that was the other problem with the old Movie Pass, was that there were lots of situations where it just stopped working or just didn't work. So I would say it's much better to get it now than it was a couple years ago, because it did get scandalous. And one of my first videos on this channel years ago was actually calling out Movie Pass, calling it out for the scam that it was. This, however, is much better. And they've got some very, I think, interesting plans for it. Steven, only example where box office was horrible in box office domestic but did outstanding worldwide was the Fast and Furious franchise. But even then, I would actually, to a certain point, disagree, because it wasn't terrible for the Fast and Furious franchise domestically. Let me see if I can pull those up. I don't think I'll have time for my reviews, so I might have to do like quick reviews at the end. And then I can do dedicated reviews another time. But let me see. Yeah, so for instance, you go to like a film like Furious 7, that film still made $353 million domestic. That's still a pretty good domestic number there. But let's see the franchise numbers. Yeah, that might be the closest thing. I'm not saying that you're wrong. That it may not be the closest thing. But yeah, I think that the proof is in the pudding, though, as they say. The proof is in the pudding. Let's see. Let's get the chat off the screen, so that way my beautiful face is not blocked. So yeah, you can see here, opening, let's go to total domestic. So $144 million for the first film, domestic, versus 206 international. So you see, for most of its history, it actually was pretty matchable. By the time you get to Fast 5, that's when you start to see the much larger number international. So still, 210 domestic is not terrible, right? This is obviously a lot more international, but it's still there. And then you see it increase. The only, I would say, difference is The Fate of the Furious, which was a bad movie. This one did definitely fall off a cliff quite a bit. And this film, as you can see, still made over $1 billion worldwide. But look at that, right? It's still, drop-off wise, percentage-wise, going from 3 to 200 million is very similar to going from 1.5 to 1.2 billion. And then you can see it's still going down internationally with every subsequent release. So even though the number is higher here, you got to look at it from a longer historical scale. So I would say you might say it's the closest, but because you are still seeing a huge decrease even amongst the international communities, it's still clear that you will continue to see that in the long run. So I do think that it's a good shout, but it's not fully formed. All right, let's see. Hardwick says, did you know The Apprentice is a foreign indie movie made entirely outside the Hollywood system? No Hollywood studio wanted to touch it. The release even had to be crowdfunded. Weird. It was odd that Briarcliff was, in fact, the distribution studio. That's interesting. Laura says, I saw that Am I Racist is the most successful documentary in like a decade, I think. It's definitely up there, but we have to keep in mind, right, that even when Daily Wire throws out things like that, it's still not a complete, like... You compare this to some of the biggest documentaries that have ever existed, and it's still not, like, total money-wise up there. But there's no doubt about it that it's doing well. Steven, your thoughts on the Penguin TV show? Everyone who's seen it said it's great. We're only 3 episodes in, so there's still a long way to go for things to go to hell. But 3 episodes in, I could say the first 3 episodes are fantastic. The show is very, very good. It is lacking the one thing I'm so happy it does not have. As you all know, I'm very critical of hypersexualized stuff. It does not really have that. To almost any degree that I can remember. There's obviously characters in there that are, hoes, but there's, no graphic nudity or things like that from what I can remember from the show. There's a lot of cursing, obviously, and violence, but it is very well done. And the character development is fantastic, and I'm very happy to see it. I would highly recommend it. Wendy Hunter, I have to go. Bible study time for me. I hope you and the rest of the chat have a good night. You too as well. Blessed night to you. Have a great Bible study. It's awesome to always hear. Laura says, Odin's first OMB video. Oh, there you go, Laura. Shared it. Oh, man. You're going to see young Odin there. Oh, man. That was before I had any sense of myself. There was no channel identity at that point either. Man. Icthulu, who's a member, saying, hey now, the reason that movie passes are a terrible waste of money is not because of the possible saving. It's because almost every movie released this year is trash. That's a fair point, Icthulu. That is a fair point for sure. Steven, also a great example is the movie 2012 did low domestic but great worldwide. And again, Steven, it's not about those numbers. As I mentioned, there are plenty of examples of films having a much larger international than domestic. What I was saying is there are none to my knowledge that had because of word of mouth, a weak opening that then fell off a cliff domestically. And then a similar, or rather, that did not at the same time have a similar comparable drop-off internationally. So as I mentioned, you saw from Fast and Furious film to film that once the domestic started to go down, the international also went down. So even though the chasm between the two totals is still massive, that is not what I'm talking about. The numbers are still going down. That's the point. They're correlating. So I think for Joker 2, the question was asked, do I think that the drop-off is going to be just as significant internationally? And I think yes. Because, again, to my knowledge, there are not films that have had, massive drop-off domestically in its day-to-day, week-to-week totals, and then increase or stay very solid international. I don't know of any examples off the top of my head for those. All right, as we wrap things up tonight, let's do a few reviews, okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. These won't be dedicated videos later on, like I've been trying to do. I might just have to film dedicated reviews during this week that I'm off. But first off, Joker. Yes, this is much higher, I think, of a score than you probably thought I was going to give it. A 58% decent rating from me. Here's the reason why. Despite great performances, a unique storytelling idea, and solid cinematography, Joker 2 ultimately fails to live up to the power that the first film has, and ultimately becomes a film that will likely disappoint many more people than it will impress. Some may argue that's kind of the point of the movie. I would argue that's a terrible point to ever try to push through. And I still hold to that. The only way that you can justify this film making the decisions that it makes in the third act is if the director made a choice to say, all right, I made my first film and it was great. I had no plans to make a second film. I did not want to make a second film. However, the studio saw a lot of money on the table and the audience as well wanted more. And even though you might say, well, I didn't want more, no one can deny that there was a lot of people who would have said, hey, if it's good, I would love to see a second film. At least a lot of people would say that. I would say there was probably a large portion as well who said, I want a sequel. I want to see more of the story. I want to see more films like this. And so the only way that, to me, you can justify the decision he makes in the third act is to say, because of a nihilistic view of nothing matters, I don't care, he decided instead, all right, you know what? I'm going to make your movie, and I'm going to make it in such a way where audiences are unhappy, where the studio does not make its money back. Why? Because it doesn't matter. Nothing in life really matters, and that's the whole point of the movie. The problem, though, is that some would say, oh, yeah, that's just nihilism bleeding through the movie, and if you see the first film, the nihilism is there as well. The problem, though, is that I think for him, he thinks it's being clever. And because of that, it means he's actually not being fully nihilistic, because it means he is saying there's a point. The point is that there is no point. That still means that there is a point. If he did not care, he would not have made the movie, right? If nothing mattered, then none of this would have actually come to fruition. There would have been no effort in this movie, and yet you can still see, if you look at the objective elements of the movie, there is still effort to be made here. The actors are still giving very good performances throughout the film. You are still seeing competent cinematography. You are still seeing a lot of elements, especially even those musical elements, that actually do work for what it was trying to get through. They don't work nearly as well as they could have, because they could have done a much bigger musical number. They could have actually utilized that a lot more. They could have used that $200 million budget for something, and instead they use it for essentially nothing. And so, yes, you could make the point. I just don't think it's a very good point, because the fact is, by saying that there is a point, which is to have no point, you are admitting that there is a point. And that's a bit of a problem from a nihilistic standpoint, which is why it's a stupid philosophy in general. But anyway, let's get to the substance. So this is also a film that is decent for me, a 59% decent score. Now, the story is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. The effects are great. The makeup team deserves an Oscar. And actually, I will say, if we had a costume or a visual effects, I would say, scratch that. If we here at the Raven Awards, that we have every single year, if we had a category that featured any type of hair and makeup, this one should win, hands down, because that is phenomenal. The reason why it's only a decent score for me is because the film obviously embraces body horror. But by the third act, it's amazing how all these films just die in the third act. This film goes so off the rails in its body horror to the point of absurdity. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, this is just getting so ridiculous, you've lost the plot. You've lost the point of your movie. You've kind of just been like, hey, let's see how grotesque we can make this thing, and let's do it. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. There's a lot of, again, good things to be had in here. As I mentioned in all my reviews, I think that when it comes to the completely unnecessary nudity of this movie, it's there too, and there's a lot of it. And some would say, well, it's not unnecessary because it's all about looks. And yeah, guess what? You could have had the entire film focus on the face of Demi Moore, and it would have been just as effective, if not even more, than by showing her entire body. Therefore, there was no need to actually show her entire body. And if you needed to show other things, guess what? There were other things. Well, one of the most effective parts of the movie is when they show you the old finger. Because one of the parts of this film and one of the ideas of the story is that 7 days you are this person, or rather 7 days this person is alive. The other 7 days the other person is alive. And if you try to take more of time between them, it has a cost. And in the case of when the younger person takes more time from the older person gets older. So at one point, she's got this really creepy old finger. That in and of itself was already effective. You did not need to go the direction that you went with all of the other things. That being said, I cannot deny the fact that objectively speaking, the performances in here are fantastic. Probably my favorite performance in this movie, or at least of his career potentially, is, and Gary Banger's Sandwich Worthington, of course, is being ridiculous in his 50% obsession. But it was actually, let me go ahead and actually pull up the full stats on this movie. Dennis Quaid. Oh man, Dennis Quaid plays such a jack-off in this movie. Like, there's no other better way to really say that. But he plays such a disgusting person that he really kills it in this way. And as I was explaining the plot of this movie, by the way, to my wife, she hates horror films, okay? And so she's like, I'm done with this. No way. I can't do it. But as I was explaining the film, she was like, you had me. The movie's concept had her so interested. You take this shot, and it basically splits you into two people. A younger, better version of yourself, but not the exact same. But you are the same, right? The whole concept is you are one, even though you are different. You are still one. And it's because they obviously rely on each other's life essence in some way, right? So all that stuff was interesting to her. But as soon as I'm like, yeah, but it goes into body horror to the point where you see her back split open as this person comes out. You see a lot of other grotesque things. She's like, yeah. Show me a movie that has the same story but doesn't have all that stuff in it, and I'd be interested. And I think that it could have honestly been a really good commentary, and it is a good commentary in many ways, on how especially older actresses are treated and how they often view themselves, and how really it is something that is done to themselves. They make a choice to do it to themselves. So I thought the commentary was actually pretty spot on, but it goes a little bit too off the rails. Again, 2 hours, 20 minutes. This film could have been a cool 2 hours, cut off a lot of that third act where it goes into just complete and utter insanity of body horror stuff, including this blobous thing that appears, and been better. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the substance. And then lastly, the 4:30 movie. So this is Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, he almost had a return to form here. There are some that will argue he had a return to form here. And there are elements of this movie that as you watch them, you say, man, this reminds me of some really great Kevin Smith movies, but that's about as far as it goes. In and of itself, it doesn't get there. It relies a little bit too heavily on many of the tropes that Kevin Smith does in his movies, whether it be the actors from other films making their appearances in their cameos in different ways, whether it be in just people hanging out, having conversations. There are certain things that he does very, very well. And I would think, and I honestly do think, that the dialogue is a very strong part of this movie. The young actors that they get in this movie are also very, very good. The problem ultimately, though, is that it's a movie that is really only having a couple of laughs, laugh out loud moments, and one that you just don't ever feel the need to watch again. So it gets a 55% decent score from me. I see this movie being a film that others would actually like a lot more than I did, but that's going to be up to you. But if you want to see a Kevin Smith movie that's not complete and utter trash, 4:30 movie is your movie? All right, let's get to some last comments before we wrap things up tonight. So, Cthulhu, didn't Warcraft have the fluke of a reception in China while the U.S. was a trash fire of a reception? I believe it did well in China. So that might be the best example, but then also that's the whole China thing. And as you all know, China's box office market is fool's gold for any film, for any studio, because it is 25% cut for the studio, which is essentially nothing, right? So let's see if Warcraft will pop up here. So yes. Okay, yeah, I would say that this might be the best example that you have. This might be the best example that you have, but as you mentioned, yeah, it only did anything in China. Yeah, this $213 million in China alone. So you can't even argue that it's an example of international because only one international country actually showed up for it. Like, you take them out of it, and then you have what, a $50 million domestic to about $100 million international, which is about normal, or it's not nearly as crazy. So yeah, I don't know what was in the water for China that year, but man, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Oh yeah, I didn't have the thing up. Look at this. Look at this chart. Look how insane this is. So again, here are all the other countries. 22 million in Russia. Kind of says something when your two top countries are Russia and China, by the way. And Germany. But no, seriously, 213 million, 22. 391 million total international, 213 from China alone. Oh man. So I would say theoretically, yes, that is an example, but it does bring in that whole other factor of China. So it's not a perfect example, but I think it works. Forever Sci-Fi, Amazon has made Amazon Days bigger than Black Friday, hoping for some good deals on stuff for my list. But honestly, Amazon's now doing it so often where it's losing a lot of its meaning. And a lot of the films that they have on sale are films that are usually on sale at other times of the year. So it'd be nice, but who knows? Rob D, Terminator Genesis, that movie made 80% of its box office overseas. And again, Rob D, it's not about the discrepancy between domestic and international. It's about drop-off, okay? So did you see a similar drop-off in numbers? So for Genesis, if it had been a good movie, you would have actually seen both markets going up. Did you subsequently see both markets going down? Just that separation between the two does not automatically show that that level of discrepancy. That's why, as I mentioned with Warcraft, my question would be, okay, when did that get released in China? And did it, did you see those domestic international numbers plummet? And then all of a sudden China gets the release and it's like just consistently high. Because then again, you're dealing with not the exact thing I'm talking about here, but also a whole other bag of worms. Steven, I cared, and I get that reference. I've seen that film so many times now. King and Rumsky, why are your reviews always in the 50s? You're trying to copy the Banjo Man? Hell no. Never, ever copying the Gary Banjo Sandwich Man, ever. See how I have a range to mine, though? Notice how all of those scores were different from each other? Unlike the Banjo Man, who's 50%, Gary Banjo Sandwich, so close to the perfect mid-score. Get out of here. Patui, I spit at you. Caveat ties, but what if the point is there is no point in having no point to the point too? Can't argue with that logic. Gary says, Dr. Decent, that's 2 you just reviewed. Notice the range, Mr. Decent. Professor Decent. Actually, really, you're Professor 50%. Rob D. A good joke I would have done for the 4:30 movie is that there is no 4:30 a.m. p.m. showtime in any region. Dragon Bricks. I saw the Revenge by the same director as The Substance. Very stylistic, but the end was too much male nudity for me. Ugh, yeah. Stephen. It's quiet. Too quiet. Be careful. It's a trap. I hope that was a Star Fox reference. Star Fox 64, to be exact. Now, I did not play a lot of games past the N64, even in the Star Fox franchise. But man, oh man, Star Fox 64, one of my jams from back in the day. All right, that's going to be it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Went well past my normal time. So thank y'all for being a very active chat, participating, and for putting up with my nonsense. I'm sorry, again, that Heimdall just did not work tonight. I don't know why. Heimdall is just dead. And there's no way of bringing him back, I guess. We'll see what happens next time. But glad the internet didn't cut out. Turning off the VPN probably helped. And glad the chat actually worked out as well. So if you've been watching on any of the platforms, including over on X, Thank you for watching tonight. And again, please share this out as well with anyone that you think might find this stream enjoyable in any way. We'll see if any clips come from it. I think I might be able to get a review out of the Joker segment, but who knows? But I'm tired. I need some rest. It's time I rest a while. Name that reference. That's a very obscure one. If you want to have a very good, fun video game video to watch, look up You Will Not Be Disappointed. If you have a soul and you enjoy comedy, you'll like this. Look up on YouTube 50 worst video voice acting, and you'll get the video that I'm talking about. It's one of the best things ever. That's what you should have done in the beginning. Oh my goodness, it's so great. Seriously, it'll make your night if you need to pick me up. Steven, glad you know that reference. Yes! Cthulhu, thanks for being here. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington, I spit at you. And you're 50%, but good night to you, good sir. Caveat ties, good night. Forever Sci-Fi, good night and God bless. Prayers for those in Florida, absolutely praying for anyone in Florida, anyone in the pathway of Milton. And obviously, please prepare. Take it seriously. As someone who lived through Katrina down in Louisiana, I can tell you, yeah, never let it go. Anyway, you guys, never ever take it for granted, ever. But you guys seriously have been amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. I will get my October shoutouts video done this week, now that I have the time to do so. But it's been crazy times. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I love you guys. And as always, God bless. Oh, wait a minute. What am I doing? Oh, by the way, today is the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. I have it in the title of the video. I got to talk about it. All right? I always try to do that. It's a great feast day in the life of the church. This is actually the commemoration of a couple of different events, but the most major event is, the way that we know Our Lady, Mary, Mother of God, is through the intercessions through the history of Christianity. And one of the biggest ones happened actually in the 1500s, in which we saw through the dedication of the Rosary, there was this huge victory at the Battle of Lepanto. There were Muslim invaders coming in, trying to get into Europe. And it was Christendom. It was the Christian sailors that were able to go out, even though they were outnumbered by quite a lot, and able to go out there. And even though they were put at very little odd, they were able to somehow overcome that and wipe out the Muslim invaders and save Christendom, to save Europe from being invaded by them. And this only is said to have happened because of the intercession of Our Lady. This is why we have the name and title of her as Our Lady Queen of Victory, because of this victory at the Battle of Lepanto, because the Pope at the time asked the entire Christian church to pray the Rosary, to pray the prayer given to us by Our Lady, and where we reflect on the life of Christ. People oftentimes forget that the Rosary itself is very Christocentric. So on this feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, it's just a good time to remind everybody about her, to remind everybody about the power of the Rosary. And also, if you go to my website, OMBReviews.com, there is a Rosary request form that you can fill out, and I do send and make free rosaries to anyone who would like one, to anyone who would need one. So I do want to make sure that's out there. To anything I can do to help promote the Rosary, I will always take it, especially on this feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, of Our Lady Queen of Victory. It is a very important time to do that. So anyway, you guys are all amazing. Lex Odendi adding some historical context here. 200 Christian ships versus 300 Muslim ships. Yes, and that's the reason why it's so incredibly important for us to always remember these things. So anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. And as always, God bless. now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illich and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribestar people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And also to the K-Man. Check out his website, xtheboundaries.co. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed August, and as always, God bless.